Hellraiser Inferno was released in 2000 and was the first Hellraiser film to be released direct to video, beginning a slew of Hellraiser films that were released direct to video and are pretty much infamous for usually being pretty terrible. But I have to say, there's one or two at least hidden gems from my recollection in the slew of direct to video films. Inferno is kind of a mixed bag in my opinion. This stars Craig Sheffer, who apparently was in Fire in the Sky, which I actually rewatched that recently, and I really liked that film, and I had no idea he was in that. He also makes a pretty quick appearance in the Danny Trejo film Badass, which I need to rewatch that too, so that'll be on my list. And for this film revolving a lot around Pinhead, Pinhead does not show up very much at all in this film. He makes a very, very brief appearance for like 2 seconds, I think 15 minutes into the film, and then he doesn't show up for a good 79 minutes in, and he's in it for like a minute and a half or 2 minutes after that. It's pretty ridiculous. But what we have going on is we have this really seedy detective in this really like kind of neo-noir seedy crime like detective mystery film. And another thing that I forgot to mention that these films are famous for is kind of having the whole Hellraiser theme thrown in there. So basically they were scripts that were left on the shelf or whatnot, and then they decided to make them into Hellraiser films to kind of use the marketing to make more money for the films or bring more attention to the marketing kind of thing. But these films are known for not originally being Hellraiser films, and when you really see them for what they are, it's kind of obvious. It really does feel like Hellraiser takes a second place next to everything else kind of thing, which is a shame, but it is what it is. Anyways, this detective is on a case where this guy ends up being viciously, brutally murdered, and this guy's name is Jay Cho, and Jay Cho was an ex-friend or a high school kind of acquaintance that our main character Joseph, played by Craig Sheffer, knew from back in the day. And at the crime scene, he's basically, this is where you really get to know that the main character is a piece of shit. Is he's talking about this guy and how he used to bully him in high school and how nobody liked him. And when he joined the basketball team, everybody picked on him until he quit and they gave him hell pretty much. And he really emphasizes on this bullying on this poor kid. And he starts to talk about it as if it's like he's glorifying his behavior and everybody else's behavior on tormenting this kid. So it's really ridiculous as he's standing over his mutilated body. And this is right from the get-go. This guy, as you get to know him through the film, he's unfaithful to his wife and he's hooking up with prostitutes. And he even gives this monologue on how he understands what fidelity is, that his parents have been married for 40 years and he just lives in a different world. So, if I have to sleep with prostitutes to keep coming back to my wife, so be it. I know leaving her would give her hell, so if this makes me stay, then it is what it is. Who can call me a bad person? Who can say what's right or wrong? He's just trying to justify himself, and it's so ridiculous. And this actor, I really don't know if it's his acting and what he wanted to bring into the role, or if he was directed this way, but he's just so annoyingly unlikable. It goes right down to his like facial expressions and his voice and the way he talks and his mannerisms. You just don't like this guy, and he's such a creep, and it oozes out of him. It's like he gives this shady performance like no tomorrow, and there's nothing redeemable about this guy, and there's nothing to like about him at all. He neglects his parents, he neglects his family, he neglects his child. He's on the force even. He does really shady shit to criminals. He works kind of on both sides, kind of in the gray areas of things. He uses this guy who drives an ice cream truck, and has like, he's a shady character himself, and he has a huge past of like criminal history, and he uses this guy to kind of give bait to other criminals and stuff like that, kind of like a rat kind of thing. and he uses him to his advantage only. It's fucked up. But yeah, as we get to know this guy, he's going through crime scenes, and then basically this film really plays into like hallucinations and this guy losing his mind essentially. In the first crime scene with Jay Chow, he finds this finger, which ends up being a child's finger, and this finger is inside a candle, inside wax basically. And with every as the movie goes on, there's more and more deaths that happen, and at every death, he there's basically a finger left behind, and they're starting to question Joseph himself because he seems to be losing touch with reality and his sanity's going, and every kind of everything is pointing to him. And even at one point, he has his partner named Tony starts questioning him as well, and he wants to at one point in the movie frame Tony because one of the prostitutes that he ended up sleeping with at the beginning of the film, she is one of the victims at a crime scene, and this is where a lot of things are pointing to him. So he basically frames Tony by leaving Tony's cigarettes at the crime scene, so he has kind of like an upper hand and an advantage to screw Tony over if he, you know, goes to the police chief and tells the truth kind of thing. So this guy really is in it for himself. The prostitute that he sleeps with at the beginning, the one that ends up being the victim, is actually really hot. And she played Tracy in the Hangover trilogy, which I only found out after the film looking her up because I went to look her up immediately to see what else she was in. And she's in those movies. During a lot of times in this movie, this film starts to feel like a TV film. And there's a funny blend when I watch like direct-to-video films and TV films. They kind of start like feeling the same tone wise. Really weird choice of music in certain scenes. Like there's a point in the beginning of the film where he comes home and he's like kissing his daughter, and they're playing this like really kind of like sensual romantic music in the background that completely doesn't fit the scene going on. It's really strange. Visually, I really like this film. I think, although there's a lot of CGI in it, I think the visuals are stunning and creepy. There's these two Cenobites specifically, which are basically twins, and they kind of represent like sexy, kinky Cenobites kind of thing. And it goes along with his infidelity and him, you know, betraying his family for pleasures on the side kind of thing. And they're like at one point rubbing their hands all over him, and they put their hands basically underneath his skin and start rubbing him from underneath the skin, and it's a really great visual. But it kind of also represents like how they're getting under his skin kind of thing in a literal sense. So I really like how they look, the Cenobites, and just the creepiness and the real horrific tones that this film goes for, especially visually. Later on in the film, he's going through a hospital where his parents are staying, and it's very dreamlike, very hallucinatory. And there's a lot of creepy visuals where this guy's like riding on a wheelchair, this older guy, and he's got his face split, similar to the earlier films, but like there's chains kind of pulling his face apart, and he's giving this really creepy pulled out smile. Really cool stuff. There's this one rotating pillar which reminded me of Hellraiser 3, where his wife and daughter are on the pillar while it spins, and they're kind of fucking with his head kind of thing and playing mind games with the main character. And what this film suggests essentially is that he is in purgatory, and he found the puzzle box in the motel where he was sleeping with that prostitute, and he opened it accidentally, and when he did, Pinhead is basically, for the whole film, playing mind games with him and keeping him in purgatory and making him aware of how shitty and selfish of a person he is, taking him all the way back to childhood. And I like the climax of this film too, where he's in his childhood home and he's seeing himself as a little kid, and then his mother comes at him with like no eyes and she's wielding a knife, and Tony, his partner, is like throwing daggers at him and stuff, and he's going through his house that's very dreamlike, well, nightmare-like in this situation, and it is very nightmare-like. I forgot to mention the engineer too. This film revolves around this mystery character which they call the engineer, and this engineer character has made a lot of previous detectives go crazy and lose their own minds, and as the film goes on, this main guy Joseph is always like reawakening into new nightmares, and the film feels very out of order, and it really is a head trip to watch. James Remar pops up in this film too, which I like to see him in. He plays a counselor who, spoiler alert, ends up being Pinhead in disguise, kind of thing, or Pinhead taking the form of this counselor, and it's just basically this character in purgatory realizing the bad decisions that he's made essentially all his life, until the very end, where he realizes that he's in purgatory, and this is why he keeps kind of reawakening all the time. Even at the end of the movie, at one point, he tries to commit suicide, but he just wakes up back in the motel and has everything go on over again, like with the prostitute and everything. So it's a grim film. There is no happy ending, but we're also dealing with a piece of shit. So there is no happy ending for the awful choices that he's made. And they really paint him so negatively, and make him to be such an awful human that you really kind of don't feel any sympathy for him. Although it is pretty terrible, just the idea of spending eternity in hell. They kind of really visually show that in this film. But like I said, the creature design I think is the best. Obviously, more Pinhead would be nice, but it is what it is. And I really liked the twin BDSM looking Cenobites. They were creepy, and just like I don't know, everything about their design I found really really terrifying. And this almost felt like a Silent Hill film in its visual horrors kind of thing. So I really appreciate that. But yeah, it's all right. It's not one of the worst, definitely. I think the main character, played by Craig Sheffer, severely overacts. I mean, there's some lines that he delivers that are like, "What do you want from me? Answer my question!" And it's just like, he's blatantly overacting. And I don't know if he was directed that way or if that's what he chose to do, but yeah, it definitely feels very soap opera-ish sometimes, but that's part of the film's charm, I guess. Anyways, that's Hellraiser Inferno. That's the 5th film, and I'm reviewing all of them, so we'll see what the next one's like. Subscribe to Morgan Film Fan if you like to listen to my voice, or if you like my film reviews. I'll be back with more soon, so stay tuned for those. Check out what's on the channel already. Stay tuned for what's coming. Until next review, have a good one, take care, and cheers.